Hello, welcome back to the Nook. I'm Daniel, and today I'll be reviewing Book 1 of this series, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. So I will be reviewing The Fellowship of the Ring. So, yeah, this will be individual reviews for each book. So next week will be The Two Towers, and I'm finishing The Return of the King today, actually, so that I can review Return of the King the following week. And just to get you a heads up on the rest of my schedule, I will be reviewing Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, and I'm currently starting Wind and Truth, and which will take me a long time. So you won't be getting a Wind and Truth review for a long time. So Fellowship of the Ring is book one in The Lord of the Rings, and this is the beginning of Tolkien's epic. So The Hobbit, which I reviewed last time, is a very basic fantasy story. It's kind of for children. It's not that violent. It's, very easy for kids to get into. Whereas Lord of the Rings, right away, you notice when you read it, it's very detailed writing, a lot more character work, a lot more battles, a lot more wars. And honestly, I would say the entire Lord of the Rings series is my favorite fantasy series of all time. I believe I mentioned that in an early video last year, that Tolkien is my favorite fantasy author. So, Fellowship, to compare it to the movie, it's quite different. In the movie, after Bilbo's birthday, Frodo is told about the ring. He goes on the journey to take the ring. He goes with Sam and Gandalf. Whereas in the book, what happens is it's many years before Frodo actually sets out. So after Bilbo's 111th birthday, Frodo doesn't even set out. I think it's like 15 or 20 years go by before he finally actually sets out. And there's some other differences. There's a character that shows up in the books called Tom Bombadil. He really only shows up in the Fellowship of the Ring, and they meet him in a forest. So Frodo, Merry, and Pippin are going out. They know about the ring. They know what they have to do. So they're going to this forest, and they end up in some trouble, and they get helped by Tom Bombadil. So I'm just saying Tom Bombadil was never in the movies, and I don't really mind because they were still good movies. I don't think he needed to be in them, but I loved him as a character reading this book. There's stuff with Frodo I really liked. I would say Frodo throughout the series, compared to the movies, he's more brave. He shows a lot more bravery, and whereas in the movie he's often getting hurt, which he does in the books too. But I just noticed in the books he's more standing up for against the evil. Yeah. So it's kind of this journey where he's with Merry and Pippin and Sam. And yeah, it's crazy because Tom Bombadil, you'd almost think he could destroy the ring, because what happens is he takes the ring from Frodo to look at it and he puts it on his finger, he doesn't disappear. Because what you learn in The Hobbit is that when Bilbo puts on the ring, he disappears, just like Gollum would. But the ring doesn't affect Tom Bombadil, which I found fascinating. But I'm trying to think of another difference. Yeah, so the Barrow Wights. There was a scene in Fellowship of the Ring that was never in the movie. This is right after they meet Tom Bombadil. Merry, Pippin, Sam, and Frodo are traveling, and they travel through this forest, and they end up getting mixed up with these Barrow Wights, which are these kind of disembodied arms and hands, and they all nearly die. And then Frodo remembers a rhyme that Tom Bombadil taught him, which that would then summon Tom, and Tom saves them and puts them on the right path. And it's at that point that they kind of go on their journey, and they end up going to an inn, the Inn of the Prancing Pony, which this is all in the movie. So in the movie, they kind of go straight from the Shire to the inn, and that's where they meet Strider slash Aragorn. And honestly, Aragorn is one of my favorite characters. He's probably the most heroic character in the book, him and Boromir. So this is the story where the Fellowship is formed. So we already have Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Sam, who know a little bit about the journey, but it's at Rivendell where Elrond the elf kind of starts telling them about, well, we need someone to go on this trip. We need to destroy this ring. And Frodo says, I will do it. And after Frodo kind of announces he's going to destroy the ring, they're like, well, we need a fellowship. We need people to protect him. So it's Aragorn, Boromir, Gimli the dwarf, Legolas the elf, and the hobbits, and Gandalf. And it's a very good story. If you've seen the movies, you know the full story. Even though I'm not going to spoil a lot of what happens, there's some standout moments for sure. Like I said, the Barrow Wight scene that's only in the book, I found the Barrow Wight was a very exciting scene, very almost like a horror movie in some sense, really creepy. And Obviously, Tom Bombadil, I liked the stuff with him before that. One of my favorite scenes is the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, which is they're in that cave, the Dwarven cave, and that's where Gandalf fights the Balrog, which is a very famous scene in the movie where Gandalf says, you shall not pass. Interesting thing, in the book it says you cannot pass. It's kind of different, but that scene was epic in the book, just like it was in the movie, and it's just a really great story. This is really just the beginning, because what happens is the Fellowship sets out to destroy the ring, and then you kind of see what falls out towards the end of the book. The Fellowship kind of breaks off and goes to different directions, and then you kind of get to the next book, The Two Towers, where you're getting to see different characters in different settings, and it's really quite interesting. Honestly, I think Fellowship of the Ring is a great story. It's a great start to The Lord of the Rings. And I would say the series gets better as it goes. I think Return of the King is my favorite of the three books, if I'm counting them as individually three of them. But the Fellowship of the Ring is great, especially because it starts out in the Shire, which is so cozy and nice, and then you get the hobbits going on their journey, and just you get to, like I said, the Khazad-dûm part with the Balrog fight is very epic. There's a lot of epic stuff in just the Fellowship, but it just gets more and more epic with the Two Towers, which I'll get more into that when I review the Two Towers next week. But all that to say, this is just a great story. I loved it again. I've reread it I don't know how many times, and now of course I'm finishing Return of the King, and I'm a bit sad because my journey with the Fellowship is ending. But really, this first book is great. It was good to revisit it, and yeah, that's about all I can say about it. If you haven't read it yet, if you've read The Hobbit, you're not so sure about Fellowship of the Ring, give it a shot. I mean, even though it's very detailed in its writing, it is very fast-paced, and a lot of stuff happens. Well, okay, not entirely fast-paced, because in the beginning, Frodo doesn't leave the Shire for so long, but other than that, it is fast-paced once the journey gets going, and it's definitely worth it. So remember to like and subscribe, and leave a comment what you think about The Lord of the Rings, specifically about the Fellowship of the Ring, what you think of that as a first book. And remember, you're always welcome at the Nook. Bye.